Okay, now we're recording. So let's start. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, so I've been working on the Android TV, picking up where Jor left off. Is Jor here?
Dror is not here, is he?
No,
Okay.
he's in the office, but yeah.
Anyway.
I can call him.
It's okay. Basically, what I was gonna say is he had made basically all the necessary implementations to get it working, but I guess due to some updates in the leanback library that Android TV relies on, some of these customizations he had made stopped working. I got them fixed, and right now I'm in the process of just documenting all the keys necessary for project managers to be able to customize the look and feel of the app. I've also been working on getting the development environment working in a more friendly manner, because right now it basically doesn't work right away after executing Rake Prepare Workspace. And I decided, since you can't really work on a mobile app and work on a TV app simultaneously due to the way we build our assets and stuff like that through SAP. Right now, it's like working off of flavors. Like you have your Android TV flavor, and then for some reason you still have the mobile flavor. And that just makes it very confusing. So in reality, if you're working on TV, your app module should just be TV. So I'm working on modifying the rake task to recognize, hey, this is the TV. So adjust the manifest files and all of that correctly so that you could just start working right away. And yeah, that's basically what I've been working on.
Okay, cool.
Which app we have with Android TV?
We are planning on releasing Las Estrellas with Android TV, but hasn't been launched yet.
Yeah, for us there is an increasing interest in developing apps for TV, Android TV, and also other brands, and Apple TV, of course. Yeah, indeed interesting. Here is Dor just joined. You missed everything Javier said. He said he was continuing your work on the Android TV side. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe after this we could get together. I would like to show you some interesting things that I found with the vertical grid fragment that you had created, but it's not a big deal. And any day that you have a chance, I would like to talk to you about it.
Okay.
All right.
And we need the help of Ran to release version from ZAP to the TV SDK, like from Drogon or something. I'm not sure how it's. Maybe it's possible already.
There is no problem.
Yeah.
It's possible.
But it's the same. How? Okay, I don't know. I don't know how it can be done, but
You create a version based on an Android TV SDK and you release it. What do you mean?
the same SDK like the generic.
It's not. It's the Android TV SDK. It could be pointing whatever SDK you want, but it's a different platform.
And how do I do it there is something in Drogon that can release Android SDK version?
There is, sorry?
In Drogon, I can add a param, like to tell him which platform is it.
You don't need to tell him which platform is it. You just need to deploy. Yeah. You will need to have a parameter telling you if you're using the same repository, telling him that this is an Android TV.
It's existing.
It's on the process of being done.
Okay. Cool.
Should be done today, tomorrow.
סבבה. Vale.
Okay, cool. Who goes next?
I can. I have some updates. Okay, so first of all, I saw that we have an issue with the composite component, and where we are when we are using image view or carousel inside a component view, so the padding of the carousel are messed up. I don't know. We have an issue with that. So I added a fix. So it will be great if you can check if you are doing something with a template, UI builder, or something like that. If you will be sure that you're using the latest as a dev, just to see that nothing is broke.
What was the change again?
We have an issue. We had an issue with components inside a composite component like a carousel or image view.
Okay.
When you want to set the padding of this component, the nested component, so it was done twice, this padding, for some reason. So till now, as I remember, we just said that we cannot do carousel as a full width and other with padding or something like that, other component.
Yeah.
So I think this is the reason for that. Okay, so I just fixed it.
Alex worked on something related to the padding inside the composite component. Did you? You need to please, Kariti, please have a conversation before this is merged or whatever, because it could have an effect on all the UI Builder apps.
Yeah, I know. Because of that, I wrote it in the channel that I added it because this is a bug for sure. Okay, and if we can talk about it with you and Alex, who is working on it. And I wrote it on the channel to update to the latest dev and to check it now. If you're working on a UI Builder apps or template, just to make sure you're using the latest dev. And if someone have an issue, you can talk about it with me and see what we can do with it. If someone work on it, I will talk with him later. Okay. This is the first thing. The other thing is I added URLs implementation for a URL scheme to the audio playlist page. We have a podcast page that can be open only from the side menu with the flag that we need to add also to the component properties. Something weird. I don't know why this is the only place that we can launch this activity, but I added a URL scheme for that, so you can go to the URL scheme policy util in the generic and see an example to how to open this activity with the URL scheme.
Just adding that it's a white label screen.
Yeah, it's a white label screen. It's not a generic screen, but I hope that we will add a plugin to the audio playlist activity as well, as soon as possible. But for now, if you want to open this page not from the side menu, you can do it with URL scheme. I think that the only one that using this activity is the US team, so maybe it's relevant for them. One more issue that I want to raise, I think I saw in a lot of places that we are using placeholders as a background for the image view. I don't think it's a good idea to do it. It's not a good practice. because the background is layer behind the source, behind the image. So if you are setting the placeholder as a background of the image view, when we will load the source, the URL, the background will be still there. So it doesn't replace it. So it means that we also have an image as a background and we also have an image as a source. So if you are doing it, I think that it's not a good practice, so you can change it and make sure that you are using the source and not the background for the image, for the placeholder. That's all.
Do you know if there are implementations where it does?
I want to talk about it regarding to the UI build. I want to talk about it with Ron, because when we have an issue that, like, if we are thinking about it, we're setting the placeholder as a background and we're trying to load the item, the asset, yeah? If we have an issue, if we have an error when we are loading, so we will see the placeholder. But in the templates, you can set the placeholder in the JSON. So if you have an error, you are setting the placeholder into the source. But in the UI builder, I'm not sure how it works. So maybe in the UI builder,
I don't understand why you need to do it. If you have an error, why do you care if it's a background or the source?
sorry? No, because if you're not setting the image as a background, okay, so maybe you will not load the image. You will have an error, and then you must set the placeholder as a source to see the placeholder.
But if I have a background as a placeholder and I put the source on top of it and the source failed, wouldn't I see the background?
Yeah, if the source fails, you will see the
If
background.
the source succeeds,
No, it's saying if you are setting the placeholder as a source.
If you are setting it, and yeah, it could, yeah, I guess it will work, yeah. But we are usually put, yeah, of course, yeah. Sorry, you just put it as a source and that's it. Yeah.
Cool.
You're right.
all right. Who goes next?
I can go next. So yeah, I'm trying to finish up the plugin for the library selector, for the broadcaster selector, depends how you name it. And then, so this is something that I just published the manifest with using Sapifest. And then I'm just trying to create some tests, unitary tests for some of the functionality of the plugin. And then minor UI changes, and then I'll be done with the plugin. So also been handling a couple of regressions that we had with latest SDK that we have the release candidate. So Ran, this is something that we need, you, me, and Anna, we need to coordinate, and also for everyone. It seems that this latest SDK, we had quite a few regressions. And so this is something that we need to be more careful in the future, because I know that I had one, so I will try to be more careful as well myself. And then there is a couple of others that they needed to be fixed. So yeah, we're currently trying to work to be able to get the code freeze SDK from last week ASAP out, so everyone can actually start using it as well.
Do we have code freeze today or not? You know
Not
what?
today, on Friday.
Friday?
Usual.
But we had a quiz last week, no? And nothing is released yet, no? Or...
Yes, because we have two regressions. This is what Javier is explaining.
Yeah, so we want to do another code quiz? Like...
We will release, I hope, today or tomorrow. And then on Friday will be everything that was since last Friday minus the two regressions.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I've been working this last week. And for next week, if you want, Anna, one of the things that Ran just suggested, I can prepare, if you want, for next week, a speech about clean architecture. And not only that, actually I saw a pretty interesting talk last weekend as well, that Android, actually, they released their own how do they call it? Application architecture or components, or I cannot remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it actually follows quite a lot of the clean architecture principles as well when I was actually looking at the speech. So I will try to actually see, the differences between the both approaches, between using RxJava or these new classes that actually Android released, which actually were pretty interesting because they done quite a good job there, and it's really opinionated. But anyway, I will take a look, and then I can prepare a presentation if you guys want for next Android Tech Talk next Tuesday.
Yeah, it will be great, but it also will be very beneficial to understand how it can be implemented, or in what way we need to change some of our existing code to work the way suggested.
Yeah, especially that's the trickiest part. So
because
yeah, exactly.
The theoretical part is very interesting, but we need to understand how it can be applied to what we do on a daily basis.
Yeah, of course, and that will be also the most challenging part by far. So to be able to apply these principles into our own code base, and especially do it in a way where we minimize the risk of creating regressions.
Yeah.
And so that's what is going to be like especially tricky. So I will prepare something for next week.
It doesn't have to be one session. You can have one theoretical session, and then the next one have something that can be applied.
Yeah, otherwise I think it might take too long. But yeah, I think it's better actually to do it like that. And maybe we can, if you guys want, then have a theoretical one. And so we all can, be on the same page regarding terms and regarding architecture-wise. And then another one, maybe also with the help of some of you guys as well, we in the second one with the implementation part, I can gather feedback from a few of you guys, and then we can actually do this, on a like team effort, to be able to see what it would be the best way to approach this. So in our case, that's good.
Sounds great.
All right, cool.
All right. I can go next. I would like to update on one of our clients asked us to check something that is related to the app closing in the background and then restoring, and something and crashing basically when it's restored. So specifically on the ProSieben channel apps, we have an external player that we implement as a plugin. And this player needed to be initialized, but when the app closed in the background, when the player was playing and the user clicked on the home button, moved on to another app, and the app would be terminated in the background, and the user returned to it, the player would be restored because that's the last activity that was active. But it is restored and it is not initialized. And then it caused a crash. So they asked us to look into it, and then we came up with the idea that they need to set the player to reinitialize itself, because we cannot intervene in that part. So that part we took care of, but then they said something that made us look a little further. And they said that in this specific scenario, Hockey Up is not restored because we initialize or we register to Hockey Up both for updates and crash reports in the main activity of our app. So once the player is restored and we don't go back to the main activity, we don't have Hockey Up in this session.
Not all the stack is restored,
only the latest activity is recreated. And then when you go back, then any other activity that was part of the stack can be recreated by the activity manager. So in this scenario, we have an issue with the reinitializing or re-registering for Hockey Up for crash reports. It's basically mainly on the debug version, but still it's something that we needed to look into. And then we thought maybe it's worth registering or initializing Hockey Up on the application level, rather than waiting for the main activity to launch and then do the registration. Do it once the application is restored, is created. So then when the activity is restored from the background, an application is created, and then you re-register to the Hockey Up. So this is something that currently Merav, who could not attend today, she's looking into it. Once it's done.
How you can do it in the up level? Like you don't have what you need to initialize.
Okay, the Hockey Up ID is set on the account on the CMS. Basically, it comes from Zap, and then Zap updates the account on the CMS. And when the account's finished loading, you have the ID, and you can start using it for registering and for initializing Hockey Up, basically.
Yeah, the problem is the SDK. I was just reading quickly, and they actually tell you to pass context of an activity. It will be there's a crash manager registered this that they tell you to do it in an activity.
Yes.
So it's just a matter to check if this is the context or is actually an activity, and then you could actually do it in there.
One of their API calls uses an activity, and one uses general context. So basically, the application context can be used for crashes, and for checking for updates from Hockey App. This requires an activity. Specifically, they specify an activity. So we want to move the crash reporting from Hockey App to the application context. And actually, the same problem that I described with an external player exists in our player example. So when the app is killed in the background with our player, and we don't go back to the main activity, you don't have a reinitialization of Hockey App. So we're trying to address this issue currently, which means we'll still get the account ID from the Hockey App ID from the account. We will store it, and the custom application will check if we can fetch the Hockey App ID and then reinitialize with when the application starts. This is what currently Merav is looking at to solve the app restore, persistence bug.
Cool.
That's it. Who's next?
I have a general question for data source plugin implementation. If we are using URL scheme to specific VOD item, it's Atom video. Is it work, or we need something to develop in order to work?
Can you repeat, Noah, what is the question?
What is the question?
If we are doing a URL scheme to avoid Atom video.
It's not related to the data source provider. You want the URL scheme to a video item that is coming
Video
from
item that is not in our
not in our CMS. Yes, we have. Yes, it will work.
By the ID, or I need the URL?
No, you need to. You can look at there is documentation. I think Gil added it to documentation. Let me look. But yes, it will work.
Okay.
You need to give there is a specific URL scheme, blah, 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 and then item ID, blah, blah, blah. The ID that put inside the...
It's a URL scheme for an Atom entry, no?
For an Atom entry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a... It will work, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Gil is coming back after the holidays, so you can, if you have any question about the implementation or anything, you can also ask him directly.
Can you just send me a link example or something?
Yeah. You're waiting for it now? Not now.
No, it's okay. Yeah, you can continue.
Who's next?
Okay, I will go next.
Tarek.
So I want to update on one thing. I've been working lately on a client request to be able using of course, data Atom Feed as a data source. Okay, they want to data, extra analytic data, using the Atom Feed. So what we did for them, and what I want, like of course I need to document, I think that all apps can benefit from it. So using the feed extensions, you can, I have added a key, which is analytics extra params, and there you can add all the parameters you need, and automatically it will be sent to the to the whatever analytics. Of course, I will document it in the Atom Feed documentation. I will add it so you can take a look at it. But if you are using an Atom Feed data source and you need to send extra data as an analytics from for your client, you can do that from the next SDK release.
I want to have a small comment related to that. That's fine. I don't know about the specific implementation, but please, any change that is done to these core models must go through the Zap team. Everything that is related to that cannot fly without us having the ability to understand if it's relevant, if it's aligned with the roadmap, if this is the right way to implement it, because it's becoming really impossible to track. So everything that is related to the core implementation that affects broadly about everything that we do must pass through the Zap team. Must. And normally this is happening. I have a constant conversation with people in different regions, but we cannot just wake up one day and add the feature that changes the entire model business logic, basically behavior.
It doesn't really change. It only adds a feature. You can use it or not. Exactly. But I understand you, and sure, we can.
Exactly. Even adding a feature, you see what happens in some of places in our code that it's like impossible because everybody just added another feature. So we need to have it controlled.
We can sit with or maybe Gil and Chia when they on Sunday.
Add who is working now in Android? Who can we can.
On the Zap team, you have either Gil and Alex, but this is more of a product decision. It's not related to the implementation. I trust that the implementation is perfect, or I want to trust. But the process of adding big things...
No, just tell us who you want to review it, like who the product.
Before you run to the implementation, there should be a conversation of understanding how to do it and where to do it. It's related also to the domain of Yoni Austin, okay? Maybe in his roadmap, which is part of the Zap team now. He has something that is like that. So we cannot just wake up every day and add a feature because this specific customer needs it without talking about it and understanding it. And we normally do it.
But we have 2 days to do it. Like we can't wait.
But you have 2 days to do it, but you cannot because what happened with every time that you have only 2 days to do it, you create tons of regression and I'm sorry to say it, but you put bad things inside the SDK without
No, I agree that it's caused a lot of problems.
It cannot work like this. There is a process. If I'm responsible for our core SDKs, we cannot play both sides. On one hand, everything that is related to releases, SDK, and regressions and all this is the Zap team, but on the other hand, everybody is doing whatever they want. I'm sorry that I'm that my intensity is high here because it's a huge problem that we are dealing with. And one of the things is that we cannot wake up every day and add new feature to the SDK without thinking about it. So there is one thing about bug fixing, and another thing of adding a new feature to one of our core models. This Atom Feed now, it's basically the only model of Applicaster. It's the only model of Applicaster. All the rest became redundant because we can use the Applicaster as a provider and then it will return the same model. We cannot just wake up and add new features to this model because we think that for whatever, Bellator, XYZ customer needs it. Tarek, also regarding that, please, I don't know if it's merge, not merge. When you get requirements like this, and on a different matter, I have now a conversation with each or one of the tech leaders of each team bi-weekly, and it could be more, related to tasks that are needed from the SDK. It doesn't mean that the Zap team should be a bottleneck at all, but it at least, we cannot get things in a surprise. That's
Okay,
the
so
that's the point.
this sort of a feature should be discussed like Android developer or like Zap,
No,
like
this
Shira.
feature is, I assume that I hope that it was planned also on iOS development. This is a product decision of what we want to add to our main models. And maybe there is another way to send extra parameters through Morpheus or whatever. Probably there is. But again, we cannot just wake up and add new code and explode our... And I'm more sensitive about this specific Atom model because it's really our entire business logic is based upon it. So I'm sorry that I'm a little bit, I don't know, Israeli mentality attacking, but...
No, you're right, but we need to define the process for...
The process is defined, and basically we are set... it's not related now to the call, but
Yeah.
in general, I would say that if you get a new requirement, this requirement, if it's related to any of the core SDK main features that are under the responsibility of the Zap team as a product, you should take you should get the requirements, understand what are the consequences. We have a talk whenever is needed. We did it with the search. Doesn't matter that you didn't implement it or yes implemented, but the process was better. I'm doing it with
but we not always it's not the conversation is not for this but we don't always have 3 weeks ahead.
You don't need to have 3 weeks, but when you get requirements from a customer, normally you should cut or understand the implications and understand what needs to be done for a specific case. And even if you have it from today to tomorrow, unless you are developing it on Sunday, even then you have a product person to discuss about it. So the discussion doesn't need to be now a design of 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah. It could be a decision of 1 day, but at least have this conversation and not surprise. That's the only thing. So Tarek, before you are merging whatever, this is something that please set a short meeting with Austin and me, and we need to understand. Also related to the iOS developer that did it. I assume that you...
No, he didn't did it. All right. He didn't. We did it in Android only.
Android only.
Next week.
Okay, so it doesn't matter, but the iOS developer maybe should also be part of this conversation, or draw you, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But let's have a short conversation of understand what are the needs and what are the options that we have. Sorry, it's not related to that, but it's important to understand that every time that you are adding things to our, we are adding things to our core modules, business logic, it needs to be discussed ahead.
All right. Okay. So that's it for my updates.
Okay, so I can go next if you guys are all right. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I got a couple of things which Bryce last week. Firstly, I would say a couple of words about the regression because it seems it appear, yeah, sure, I should double check everything, but in general, there was a bad practice in a code, which, which cues the regression because I've changed the layout. So anyways, the conclusion here is that we might be more careful whenever we are calling things like layout params. We are changing that in the code because it might be just checking again against null or whatever, because it's a fragile whenever you're calling that from procedural code and changing things in a layout. I mean, ideal situation is whenever we're doing layout on a layout layer and we keep everything in a XML. But I do understand that sometimes we need to push ourselves to change things in a code, in a procedural code. Well, when we do that, then just checking against null because it might not exist anymore. The other thing is, you know that Gradle file, which is for just for testing, the one which is calling ci.build.gradle. It's a general question. Can we create the separate build variant for that and include that in a Gradle? So instead of having separate file, we just calling separate variant for that. That's just a general thought. Maybe it's impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. What are the benefits that it will be? I'm not saying what is good and what is better, but what are the benefits of having it in a file?
Nothing more than a maybe a bit more order, because yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just my, you know, at the very beginning that file was confusing me. Was where that came from. It was like I actually thought that I did something wrong, and and suddenly some weird Gradle file appeared. But yeah, it was just a general thought that maybe we could use a variant. But once we are in a variance, yeah, I have another thought that maybe we could do something like variant, or maybe a global flag or whatever, that whenever we want to test things locally using the local server, like we do on iOS, we might have this variant for connecting to the local server instead of remote one. What do you guys think?
You have I don't know if this is what you're referring, but when you're running an app on unsigned app, on like a debug, what we called.
Yeah.
You have first time you're entering it, you have a dialogue where you can choose the environment that you want to work against. I don't know if this is what you're talking about, and I have to say that I ages ago wanted to move it to some settings screen that will relaunch the app, etc. But if the functionality exists, if this is what you meant.
Do we have a local option over there, right? Local server.
You have what we call you have an open edit text where you can add whatever you want, if I recall correctly. So you can put whatever you want.
Okay.
Not tell me, because this was developed like maybe 4 years ago. So, but if not, tell us. In general, I don't like this dialogue. I would like to move it to some settings section inside the menu or whatever. But again,
yeah, there is something here we can use. There is, if you're familiar with the project U2020 from Jake Wharton. From Jake Wharton, he actually makes like really high advanced techniques of using Dagger and build variants to actually do exactly this. So instead of actually having your code saying if build, debug, etc., you could actually play with the variants and folders in Android. So you can actually have, I actually did this for a previous project. So you could have this, like side menu that you can open and close in the apps. And then you can, change not only, for example, we had not only endpoints for servers, but Chromecast IDs, for example, we had like be able to add and like logs and everything, be able to see caches, hits, and everything, like a whole bunch of information. This project is pretty good to actually, show how the technique, how actually do this through Dagger. And it's super good because you never have this if the bugs anywhere. Everything is through configuration, not through code. And it makes it impossible to add this, for example, in production. So because, it will be always inside the debug folder. So take a look if you want.
Yes. So it's a general practice that you're putting the server base URL into the Gradle and then into the variations. You're doing the different servers. Depends on what you're doing. Is that a release, debug, staging, or whatever? In that situation, I would add another one, which is like localhost, and I would say like that would be very useful if we just change one, drag the drop down menu just like sync it and compile it.
I don't agree, because I think that it has a lot of value that you can change it without rebuilding the app. And if you put the variant in the build Gradle file, it means that you will need to recompile, which is expensive, and not sure that it's better than having it on the fly on runtime.
Yeah, take a look at the project. It's through classes. Actually, it doesn't use. I tried to do it like, as you say, through build using a Gradle before, and then I realized that through classes is actually much more versatile, because you can like through Gradle you have really static, strings. Through classes you can actually do a whole bunch of. You have everything. You have Java, so you can modify as wherever you want, and there is like super cool things that you can do to be able to override things and everything through code. And as you say, you can swap on the fly, and then you can just restart the application. They were saying that library to be able to do that. Like, it would, I can't remember. I don't know, had a really funny name. And then you can just restart the app, and then everything is, and it's always accessible through the debug variants. And then for at least for my opinion, if having to watch two different files, in our case, I presume the biggest reason when this was done, right, is because of everything that has to do with, like, if you look at the CI Gradle, we have things like publishing, through Bintray and Maven and everything to be able to do those things, and that's only specific to CI. You could actually pull those things into its own Gradle file as well, and then just apply the configuration to the CI configuration file. But then also you have all this open close, like logic of SDKs, which if we have to deal that through a single, Gradle file, is going to be a pain in the ass, and it's going to make things look really complicated. So at least my opinion, I never found it like complicated to look at the open close and all these things, through different CI files. Like sometimes you can even have on the CI, like for example, if you want to disable predex, because for a CI it doesn't really matter, for example, and like have CI flags, like only execution like CI and things like that. There's a few other things that you can do. So at least in my opinion, I think it's a good thing to distinguish between them, because they have different purposes. But I don't know if everyone agrees. So.
I don't think I don't have a strong opinion. It was the open question to you guys. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Hani or Alex, maybe?
Yeah.
I guess I'll go next, guys. This is Alex. As Ryan mentioned, I was working on, I was touching components linear layout, and I wasn't able to recognize by voice, but I think it was Elad. Was it Elad mentioning that we should talk to each other? It was Elad, right? Okay. I've noticed that in the way that we calculate the height of the components now is by using the aspect ratio, but multiplied by the width. But we're taking the whole width of the screen without any of the paddings or margins. So I think it's a bug that brings a lot of inconsistency to the layouts due to the different screen sizes. So I start working on that, and then I noticed that most of the values were hard-coded, like paddings, like distances between elements within the component. And by adjusting the height of the components dynamically, using the paddings on the side, I'm kind of breaking the layout. So I'll be needing to adjust a lot of stuff accordingly. So that's why it's taking a little bit longer than I expected. So I would like to know what your thoughts on that are. Because if we're not gonna dynamically calculate the height, including the paddings, the layout will be always different compared to the designs that we have. Otherwise, it'll be quite a bit of more refactoring. Any thoughts, anyone?
I think that first of all, you're right with this, but as I remember, part of the component are doing it, and we are not checking what is the component width, and we are checking what is the screen width. And part of the component calculate the width in other ways. I think it don't have a consistency there, so I think it will be really, really big.
It's getting daunting. Yes.
Maybe it's better to, we are thinking a lot of just changing all the composite adapter to maybe to use a recycler or something like that. And in my opinion, it will be like better to just starting to do it.
Yeah,
to break everything once and not to do it twice, because this is a really big change. So
the way we're going to approach it is we're waiting for Gil to come back, that we'll have but what we're going to do, at least for the UI builder, we're going to rewrite the entire composite component, and it will live in parallel with the existing one, not to break anything, but it will be built in a way to deal with the UI builder things. So once we start working on it, I'm sure that we will do a lot of conversation with all of you related of how to do it and how to write it in the best way.
And I think that really everybody need to give you the thought about what they need and what the requirement regarding to their apps, because each territory have a different requirement. And
no, but once we are doing it for the UI builder,
yes, but you need to be aligned for all the regions if you are starting to write it from scratch. So maybe it's better to understand all the regions requirements and to be aligned with everybody.
I agree.
So in that case, I'll keep minor changes as the height update based on the inclusive with paddings, but I'm not gonna go deeper than that. Well, that would be it for me for now.
Well, maybe also, Alex, important to mention that you develop image-only cell style for the Colorado family.
Yeah, I added the list 5, grid 3, and hero 4.
So these are image-only
yes.
cells that were requested by one of the team that was requesting it is the Europe team.
And grid 3 it's in the PR, it's not approved yet, but it should be fine. Yeah, thank you guys.
Rania, I have a question, general question. Can we have, is there documents or guideline how to build a new family?
Yeah.
For Android and iOS, or?
So guys, I'm at the moment doing the new family and I'm new member, so I'm struggling with understanding the code. And actually, I think there are a couple of things to add into documentation, because it's absolutely crazy related to the naming. For me, in my case, it's like putting the puzzles together that I'm doing Rhine family, which is actually family 3 now, but in the Android it will related to layout 3 was like impossible to guess that, like, this is not in the documentation, that we have different naming in the app. So
Anna,
Yeah.
if you can comment what were your problems, and we can.
yeah, I will definitely add my comments into the documentation after I managed to create the like first cell, run it, saw it. So yeah, so I will definitely left my comments what was the biggest struggle for me with
Maybe
that.
we can have like one session.
Yeah, definitely that would be good.
Can I have a session? Basically, I would divide it into two. One session, well, not session, but the documentation is divided into two. One is related to the designers and how they should design the cell styles, and you have documentation and you have a base file that the designer should be aligned of using it to design the cell styles. So this is one phase. I think that we are now mostly aligned in that manner. And then there is the documentation that can always be improved, and I would love to have the relevant comments, and we will update it. You know, everyone that will review will try to improve the documentation and have the.
It's in the Zap book.
Yeah, it's in the Zap
tech book.
Yeah, one thing that we talked about, I talked to Javi and I cannot remember someone else. For the families, it's about the implementation that we are doing, especially the naming. And Alex as well, yeah, and the naming convention. Because at the, like, if you look at the two families, like, so one is using one naming, the other one is using a different naming, and it's like, okay, so which naming should we use?
So problem here is that the family one is not actually having a specific family. So whenever we jump into family 2, it's layout 2, but for family 1, there's not always layout 1. So it's like very confusing. Where does it belong? Where does it live? Yeah.
I would be happy if you comment. The baseline should be family 1. Family 2 was developed in a broken way. Family 1 should be developed in a good way. I would love you to put the comments and talk to Alex at this case. And so it will be the baseline that will be understandable and clear. One important thing that we have that is redundant there, it's a known issue that we will work soon. There is a parameter in the API that is called layout. So for example, for some specific components like carousel and tabs, etc., there is the cell itself, and then there is the wrapper layout, which can only work with one-to-one relations. So for example, if you have the hero 1, it can only work with the layout of hero cell 1 or something like that. This is redundant. And this is something that the next thing that Alex will do is to remove this confusion, because it creates another confusion. The idea is that you should develop another cell style, you should understand the terminology, and that's it. And then to add, of course, the relevant classes that we add, like the icon setter and aspect ratio and other things that are relevant for a specific. We are in a work in progress on this matter, and it will be also, we will add a lot more complexity to it in terms of the functionality, like hiding and showing elements and mapping and doing a mapping between the labels and the data. There will be extra work that is done there, but for the moment, it's very important that you mention and comment, like in a document or somewhere, what was the confusion, and we will amend what is relevant.
Yeah, so basically also it's good that you mentioned this aspect ratio, because it's getting a bit mental that we have so many classes related to the aspect ratio. It doesn't do anything else than specify the ratio for the tablet and for iPhone, and it's like 20 classes for that. I think that need a refactoring. Yeah, so maybe I will speak with Alex about that, and we'll.
I'm not sure that I'm agreeing with you, because the idea is, maybe you're right in the specific case, but the idea is when you come to develop a cell style, you're basically starting and developing and implementing the relevant interfaces. One of the interfaces is dealing with the aspect ratio. So now, when it's again the concept of open-close, right? Of the open-close principle. whether you want one class and then do a huge if statement that is changing the aspect ratio, and the fact that specific cells has the same aspect ratio as other ones is not a repeating pattern, because it's something that might be different. The fact that in that specific case it's the same value doesn't mean that it needs to be the same class.
Okay, yeah, but in general, what I've did is just a custom aspect ratio, and this is a typical custom aspect ratio, and in a constructor you're giving aspect ratio for the tablet and for the phone, so you don't have to have so many classes, but then whenever you need to you need something more, you can write your own class for that. I mean, for the functionality, these classes are doing exactly the same, and they have hard-coded values. That's it.
Yeah, for me, the problem with that class, but I'll send you as well a document, because I was doing family 3 checklist as well, and a few comments. It's not so much the fact that there's so many classes per aspect ratio, as you say, Ran. It's the fact that it exposes the completely metadata of the, when you set the aspect ratio. So it's really tempting to anyone to not only set the aspect ratio, but actually change other parameters of the component. And that's pretty dangerous to have, because then you think you're just changing the aspect ratio, and someone decided to put, like not something that is changing the aspect ratio because has access to the entire component metadata, and then things can turn like funny there. But yeah, I will send you some comments. I think Javi as well had some comments as well. And I guess we've all been touching families. So maybe we can just write one document between all of us, and then so we don't have, we can see each other comments, and then maybe, we don't have to write 50 different things if we want. So.
Yeah. I would just see something more generic rather than this. But maybe I'm wrong.
Cool. Well, as I need to.
I think now just Hani left.
Well, nothing special, nothing big to share at this moment. I've been working on solving a few issues that we had, most of them view related, and that's it.
Okay. I think we covered everybody, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Ruben, do you have anything important to say?
Important?
On mute.
I ate salmon this on lunch.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything important today.
Thank you, Ruben. Okay, I guess that's it, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
תוריד אותי באופן כללי.